LaShonda Williams rose to her feet. A single mother of 2 children working dual jobs in South Central Los Angeles for 6 days and 60 hours total. Although her hands were trembling, her voice remained steady as she addressed Ms. Waters while displaying a single sheet of paper. I labor at 2 different places, working as a cashier at Target during the day and cleaning corporate offices at night for 60 hours every week. Maxine Waters sat upon the stage wearing a tailored designer suit and expensive jewelry, wearing that rehearsed smile of a career politician. I hear what you are saying, sister, and I understand the struggle. Do you really? LaShonda asked as her volume increased. Because my rent recently hiked up again, and I can hardly nourish my kids while living check to check in your district. Waters nodded in agreement, stating, "That is the reason I battle for working families every single day within Congress." Then how are you able to pay for a $6 million mansion? The local community center erupted with loud applause and shouts as people stood up, giving voice to years of pent-up frustration. Waters attempted to deflect the question by waving her hand dismissively and claiming that is a gross distortion of the public record. LaShonda insisted, while raising the property tax documents showing $6 million in Hancock Park. That location is not even within this district, meaning you do not even reside here. The audience roared even louder, because this was not a scripted moment, but rather genuine anger from real people who were her constituents. From the rear of the overcrowded hall, a voice sliced through the noise, sounding calm, yet incredibly firm. I would also like to hear the answer to that question. Everyone turned their heads and cameras swiveled around to focus on a man standing in the very last row. It was J.D. Vance, the senator from Ohio, author of Hillbilly Elegy, and a Marine Corps veteran. He was 40 years old, wearing a casual blazer without a tie, standing there among the regular citizens. Gasps and murmurs spread through the room, asking what he was doing there as the smile vanished from Waters's face. "Senator Vance," she said, "this is a community gathering intended for my constituents." "They actually invited me," he replied, while gesturing to the people surrounding him, including local business owners, teachers, and parents. They wanted someone present who truly understands poverty. Real poverty, not the version you discuss on television. He began walking forward down the aisle as people moved aside to let him pass through. "Because I grew up poor, Congresswoman, in Middletown, Ohio, where my grandmother raised me, because my mother was on drugs. We lived in poverty, true poverty, the same kind that your constituents are living in right now." He reached the front and stood beside LaShonda with the people, stating he was curious as well. How does a person representing one of the most impoverished districts in America pay for a $6 million mansion while constituents cannot pay rent? Waters looked trapped, because this was supposed to be her town hall in her district, with her people under her control. However, the room was turning against her and favoring him. "Perhaps you should explain it to us, Congresswoman. Explain it to LaShonda, who works 60 hours a week, yet cannot pay rent, while you reside in a mansion." This was destined to be a very long evening for Maxine Waters. Drop a fire emoji if you know someone who becomes wealthy from poor people remaining poor. The community center in South Central LA was packed with 400 people crammed into a space designed for 200. It was standing room only, with an overflow crowd outside watching on screens, because this was not a normal constituent meeting. This represented 33 years of frustration finally exploding. Waters had conducted town halls previously that were always carefully managed with friendly questions and softball topics. They usually featured applause lines and photo ops as the standard political theater, but not tonight. Tonight was different because this evening J.D. Vance was in attendance. The local groups had invited him, including small business owners who had lost everything during the 2020 riots. Charter school teachers fighting for resources, parents desperate for change, and young people ready to leave because there was no future here, had all reached out to Vance. Why him? Simply because he understood, as he had written about escaping poverty and breaking the cycle. He understood the struggle of working-class America and was not afraid to tell the truth about career politicians. He spoke about the poverty industry and people who get rich by keeping others poor. Waters could not refuse his presence because it was a public event open to all, and the media was there. CNN cameras and local news were present, so she had to let him in. But she had not expected this outcome. She had not expected her own constituents to turn on her, nor had she expected the anger to be this raw. The contrast was striking and visible to everyone in the room. Waters was 86 years old and had been in Congress since 1991, representing this district for 33 years. She wore designer clothes with professional hair and makeup, sitting on stage behind a table like a queen on a throne. Vance was a 40-year-old first-term senator in casual clothes, standing in the back with regular people. He looked like he belonged there because he actually did. He had been them, poor and struggling while fighting to survive. The crowd could feel it and see that one of them was authentic, while the other was merely performing. LaShonda still stood at the microphone waiting for an answer with the $6 million question literally hanging in the air. Waters finally spoke, saying, "My personal finances are my business, and what matters is my work for this community." "Your work?" asked an elderly black man who stood up, likely 70 years old. "I have lived here since 1980 and voted for you every time, spending 45 years in this neighborhood. What is better now than it was in 1991 when you first got elected? Name one single thing." Waters tried her standard lines about bringing federal funding, creating programs, and fighting for resources. "Programs?" The man's voice shook with emotion. "But I do not see programs. I see homeless people everywhere. I see businesses shut down. And I see kids dropping out of school. I see nothing getting better." The crowd erupted with applause and shouts of agreement, as years of false promises were finally being called out. Vance stepped forward, asking Congresswoman, "If I may, I think what your constituents are trying to say is they want results. Not programs, and not promises, but results. After 33 years, they are simply not seeing them." He turned to address the whole room rather than Waters, speaking to the people. "I am J.D. Vance, senator from Ohio, and I grew up in Middletown. It was a Rust Belt town with dying steel mills, a drug epidemic, and poverty. I get it, because my grandmother raised me as my mom couldn't since she was addicted to drugs. She couldn't hold a job and couldn't hold our lives together, so my grandmother stepped in. We had nothing, living on food stamps, charity, and hand-me-downs. We lived in poverty, the kind of poverty that crushes your soul and makes you feel worthless. It makes you want to give up." The room was silent and listening because he wasn't giving a speech. He was telling his truth. "But I got out. And do you know how? I joined the Marines, served in Iraq, came home, and used my GI Bill to go to college. I went to Ohio State and then Yale Law School, meaning I escaped and broke the cycle. I made it." He paused and looked around at the faces. They were his people and his tribe, just born in different places. "And you know what I learned? That poverty isn't permanent, and the cycle can be broken. The American dream still works if you have the right policies, the right opportunities, and the right leaders." He turned back to Waters, saying, But you need leaders who actually want you to succeed. You do not need leaders who profit from keeping you poor. That is what tonight is about, which is accountability, results, and truth. Waters looked furious, but she couldn't leave as her constituents were watching and the cameras were rolling. She was trapped. So let us start with the Mansion Congresswoman and explain it to us. The battle was on, as Vance pulled out his phone and projected images on the screen behind Waters. They were property records and public information showing the mansion. On the left side was a $6 million mansion in Hancock Park within a gated community. It featured manicured lawns, 6,000 square feet, security guards, and luxury cars in the driveway. On the right side was Central LA, her district, the district she represented. It showed homeless encampments, boarded-up buildings, trash in the streets, graffiti, and decay. "This is where you live," he said, pointing to the mansion, "and this is who you represent," pointing to the district photos. "How do you reconcile that?" he asked as Waters bristled. "I have every right to live where I choose, because this is America." "Of course you do. Nobody is questioning your right. But we are questioning your judgment. We question your morality and your ability to represent people whose lives you do not share." He pulled up a map showing Hancock Park is 15 miles to South Central. It might as well be 15,000 miles because they are different worlds. Your neighborhood has a median home price of $3 million and a median income of $200,000. The crime rate is near zero with top-rated schools, beautiful parks, and safe streets. Your district has a median home price of $450,000 and a median income of $35,000. It has one of the highest crime rates in California, with failing schools and homeless people everywhere. He looked at her directly and asked, "Do you shop in this district? Do you eat in restaurants here or do you walk the streets here? Do you send your grandchildren to schools here?" Waters tried to respond, saying she had security concerns. "Exactly. You are not safe here in the district you represent. You have represented this district for 33 years, and yet you are not safe in your own district. That tells us everything we need to know. You have been in charge for 33 years, and it is still not safe. It is still not prosperous, and still not a place where even you would choose to live." The crowd murmured, realizing she wouldn't live among them because their neighborhood wasn't good enough. She had been in charge of making it better, but had failed. "Let us talk about the money, Congresswoman, because the math does not add up." Vance pulled up financial documents showing a congressional salary of $174,000 per year. You have been in Congress since 1991, which is 33 years total. The salary before taxes is roughly $5.7 million. But you live in a $6 million house. Your net worth, according to your financial disclosures, is approximately $6 million. After taxes, after living expenses, and after everything, how did you accumulate that much wealth on a government salary? Waters looked defensive, stating her husband had a successful career. Your husband, Sidney Williams, was a former NFL player and car salesman whose career ended decades ago. Let us not pretend that explains a $6 million net worth. LaShonda spoke up again from the audience, stating she makes $45,000 a year between two jobs. After rent, food, and utilities, I have nothing left. So how did you get $6 million? An older woman stood, saying she had been a teacher for 30 years, making decent money. I still cannot afford to buy a house in this district because rents went up and prices went up. I am 65 and still renting. So how did you buy a mansion? A young man in his 20s said he has 2 college degrees, but cannot find a good job in this district. I am thinking about leaving LA and moving to Texas, maybe somewhere with opportunity. You got a mansion and we got nothing. So how? The questions kept coming with her own constituents demanding answers. Vance let them speak, because this was their moment and their voices. Finally, he stepped forward again, saying, "Here is what I think happened. You tell me if I am wrong, but you got elected in 1991 as young and ambitious. Representing a poor district, you figured out the game real quick. Poor districts are valuable in politics because you can promise them everything. They are desperate for help, so they will vote for anyone who talks the right way and makes the right promises. And as long as they stay poor, they will keep voting for you. They do this because they are desperate. They need help, and they believe your promises. But if they actually succeeded, and if the district got prosperous, then they wouldn't need you anymore. They might vote for someone else, someone who offers them something different. So you have an incentive to keep them poor, keep them dependent, and keep them voting for you. Meanwhile, you get rich, and we will get to how. But the pattern is clear. They stay poor, and you get rich. 33 years with the same pattern and same result. He looked at the crowd, asking, "Am I wrong?" Silence followed because he wasn't wrong. They could see it and feel it. They had lived it for 33 years. Waters tried to speak, saying, "This is outrageous, and these attacks are unfounded. These are facts. Your mansion is real. Your net worth is documented, and your district's poverty is visible. These aren't attacks. This is accountability. Would you send your grandchildren to schools here? Yes or no?" She didn't answer. "Would you feel safe walking these streets at night? Yes or no?" No answer. "Would you be satisfied if your kids grew up with the opportunities available in this district? Yes or no?" Still no answer. Your silence tells them everything they need to know. You wouldn't accept this for your family, but you expect them to accept it for theirs. That is not representation. That is exploitation. Vance pulled up data charts with statistics and numbers that told a brutal story. Let us look at what has happened to this district during your 33 years in Congress. Real data, not promises, but results. A chart appeared showing a timeline from 1991 to 2024. In 1991, you were elected, and here is what the district looked like. 1991 data showed median household income of $28,000, adjusted for inflation to $62,000 today. The poverty rate was 18%, unemployment was 8%, and high school graduation rate was 65%. Violent crime rate was high but declining, and the homeless population was minimal. That was your starting point, not great, but there was hope. You promised change, and you promised to fight for them. Here is 2024 after 33 years of your leadership. 2024 data shows median household income at $35,000, lower than 1991 adjusted for inflation. Poverty rate is 25%, which is worse, and unemployment is 12%, which is worse. High school graduation rate is 58%, which is worse. Violent crime rate is up 40% from 1991. Homeless population is over 5,000, which is an epidemic. The room went silent, staring at the numbers. Every single metric is worse, with median income down, poverty up, unemployment up, graduation rates down, crime up, and homeless exploded. 33 years, 17 election cycles, and you have won every time. You made promises every time, and the district got worse every time. An older woman started crying as she had lived through it all. She watched her neighborhood decay year after year, hoping it would get better. She believed the promises, and it never did. What changed, Congresswoman? What actually got better? Waters tried to answer, saying, "We have brought billions in federal funding." Money isn't results. So where did that money go, and what did it buy? Because I look at this data, and I don't see improvements. He pulled up another comparison, saying, "Let us look at other districts and compare them to yours." Texas Republican districts show income up 25% since 1991 and poverty down 8%. Business growth is up 40%. Florida districts with term limits and regular turnover of representatives show income up 20% and crime down 15%. Even California districts with new leadership elected after 2010 show mixed results, but some improvement. The pattern is clear that districts with new leadership see some progress. Your district, with the same leadership for 33 years, has seen decline. The only constant is you. The only thing that hasn't changed is you, and the result is failure. A middle-aged man stood up saying, "I grew up here and graduated Fremont High in 1995. I came back after college because I wanted to teach here and give back. The school is worse now than when I was a student. Computers are old, books are falling apart, and there is no AC in summer. Kids drop out, teachers burn out, and nothing is better while everything is worse. I have watched you promise change for 30 years, so where is it?" A young woman stood, saying, "I am 28, born here, and grew up here. I cannot afford to stay here because rents are too high, and there are no good jobs. I am moving to Arizona next month, and all my friends are leaving too. You have been in Congress my entire life, and things got worse. We are all leaving, and that is your legacy." Vance let them speak, hearing story after story and person after person. 33 years of failure and 33 years of broken promises. 33 years of their lives wasted, waiting for change that never came. Finally, he stepped forward, asking Congresswoman Waters to name 3 things. Just 3 things that are measurably better in your district because of your work. Not programs you started and not money you allocated, but results. Things that actually improved. 3 things. Waters tried to cite the CARES Act funding, saying we secured that. That was federal pandemic money that went everywhere. So it is not your accomplishment. What in your district specifically? She mentioned community development grants, but those are federal grants available to all districts. What actually improved here? She mentioned affordable housing initiatives, but homelessness is up and housing prices are up. Affordable housing is down, so that is not an improvement. That is failure. You can't name 3 things because there aren't 3 things. 33 years, and you can't name 3 accomplishments. He turned to the crowd, asking if you hired a contractor to fix your house, and after 33 years, nothing was fixed. Some things were worse. So would you keep paying them? No. You would fire them. If you had an employee who failed for 33 years straight, would you keep employing them? No. So why do you keep electing her? The question hung in the air, asking why did they? I will tell you why. Because she promises you every 2 years that this time will be different. This time she will fight for you, and this time things will change. You believe her because you are desperate, and you want to believe. You need help, but she never delivers. She can't deliver because she is part of the problem. 33 years of failure means the evidence is undeniable. Vance opened another folder, saying, "Now let us talk about how you got that $6 million net worth. Because it is not just about the money, it is about where it came from." Documents appeared on screen showing official records, news articles, and ethics investigations. In the 2008 financial crisis, banks were failing. The economy was collapsing, and people were losing homes. One bank is One United Bank, a small bank serving minority communities. It is failing and about to go under. Your husband, Sidney Williams, sits on the board. You and your husband have $350,000 worth of stock in this bank. The bank needs a bailout and needs the government to save it. And you, Congresswoman Waters, sit on the House Financial Services Committee. That is the committee that oversees bank bailouts. He let that sink in. You have a personal financial stake in a failing bank, and you have power over whether it gets bailed out. Do you see the problem? Waters tried to defend, saying that was investigated and I was cleared. You arranged a meeting between Treasury officials and One United executives. You used your position to get them special access while you had $350,000 at stake. One United got $12 million in bailout funds. Your investment was protected, and you didn't lose your $350,000. The House Ethics Committee found you violated standards of conduct. You didn't recuse yourself, and you used your position for personal benefit. But nothing happened to you. No real punishment, because you are protected. A construction worker stood up, saying, I got audited by the IRS over $3,000. I had to pay penalties and got threatened with jail time. She has $350,000 at stake, arranges a $12 million bailout, and nothing happens. That is the system. Different rules for us than for them. That is exactly the system Vance said. Different rules. You cheat on your taxes by $3,000 and you go to jail. She arranges a bailout for her family's benefit, and she gets reelected. But it gets worse. So let us talk about your daughter. New documents appeared regarding Karen Waters, your daughter. She runs a consulting company called Citizens for Waters. Your campaign pays her company for slate mailer services. Do you know how much since 2003? $1.2 million. The crowd gasped at the figure of $1.2 million. Let me explain the scheme. Your daughter's company produces slate mailers, which is a list of candidates you endorse. Other candidates pay your daughter to be on your list because your endorsement matters. Then your campaign pays your daughter to produce the mailers with donor money. So you profit twice. Once when candidates pay your daughter to be endorsed, and once when your campaign pays your daughter to make the mailers. That is legal, technically, because you wrote the laws. But it is corrupt. He pulled out a letter showing FEC complaints have been filed. Watchdog groups are calling it family enrichment, but nothing happens because you are powerful. You are protected. A small business owner spoke up saying, I cannot pay my daughter from my business unless she actually works there and earns it. But you can pay your daughter $1.2 million from campaign funds. I donated to your campaign $100 thinking it was going to help the community. It went to your daughter. Other voices shouted, I donated too. Me too. We all did. Their money was going to the Waters family while their district crumbled. Here is the math that does not work. Vance continued. Congressional salary is $174,000 per year for 33 years. Roughly $5.7 million total before taxes. After income taxes, Social Security, and living expenses for 33 years. You should have maybe $1 to $2 million saved if you were frugal, but you have $6 million and you bought a $6 million house. Your daughter got paid $1.2 million from your campaign. Where did all that money come from? He listed the sources, including the bank bailout, protecting your $350,000. Daughter got $1.2 million from campaign, plus husband's business dealings and speaking fees, all while representing one of the poorest districts in America. You lecture about corporate greed and about the wealthy exploiting the poor. You lecture about systemic inequality. But you are the one getting rich. You are the one exploiting the system, and you are the inequality. You are not fighting the system, you are the system. Waters sat there unable to defend herself because he was right. The documents proved it, and the pattern was undeniable. An elderly woman in the front row spoke quietly, but everyone heard her. My husband worked 40 years, saved everything we could, and died with $80,000 in the bank. That is what a working man leaves. You worked in Congress 33 years and got $6 million. That is not right. That is not fair. And that is not honest. You got rich off us, staying poor. The room erupted in applause because she had said what everyone was thinking. Vance let it sink in, then added one more thing. This is what a poverty pimp looks like. Someone who profits from poverty and who needs people to stay poor so they can keep getting elected. They keep getting donations, keep getting power. And you, Congresswoman Waters, are the textbook definition of a poverty pimp. Vance pulled up video from June 2018 showing Maxine Waters speaking at a rally. Let me show you something. Your own words. Her voice filled the room, telling people if you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, or at a gasoline station, you get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them and you tell them they are not welcome anymore anywhere. The video stopped, and you said that publicly on camera, calling for people to harass Trump administration officials, create a crowd, and push back on them. They are not welcome anywhere. So that is incitement. That is calling for confrontation, for harassment, and for intimidation. Waters tried to defend, saying I was calling for protest and the First Amendment. You were calling for mob action to create a crowd and push back. That is not peaceful protest. That is intimidation, and it worked. Trump officials got harassed in restaurants. Sarah Huckabee Sanders was kicked out, and Kirstjen Nielsen was surrounded by protesters. Ted Cruz and his wife were chased out of a restaurant. Your words led to action, harassment, threats, and intimidation. He pulled up more footage from summer 2020, showing George Floyd killed and protests nationwide. Then riots. Minneapolis burned, Portland burned, Chicago, Seattle, New York, and Los Angeles. Your district burned. Footage showed South Central LA during the riots. Businesses on fire, looting, destruction, and chaos. Your constituents' businesses destroyed, their livelihoods gone, and their community vandalized. What did you say? Let me show you another video. Waters speaking, saying protests are supposed to make people uncomfortable. Your district was burning, and you said protests are supposed to make people uncomfortable. Businesses destroyed, jobs lost, people's life savings gone up in smoke, and you defended it. A man stood up shaking with emotion, saying, I owned a corner store for 20 years. My father opened it in 1985, and I took it over to serve this community. I employed 5 people until May 2020 riots came. They looted my store and burned it, so everything is gone. Insurance wouldn't cover it all, and I lost everything. I called your office and begged for help, but never heard back. You were on TV here talking about protests being uncomfortable. My life burned down and you called it uncomfortable. I had to close, and my employees lost their jobs. The store is still empty 3 years later. His voice broke, asking, where were you when we needed you, when our neighborhood was burning? Other business owners stood up, story after story. Businesses destroyed and never rebuilt. Insurance rates skyrocketed, and many couldn't afford to reopen. The district lost 30% of its small businesses in the 2020 riots. Vance said 30% gone, and you never condemned the violence. You never fought for them, just made excuses. In fact, you encouraged it by saying protests are supposed to make people uncomfortable. Well, they got very uncomfortable, and you didn't care. Waters tried to respond saying, I have always condemned violence. Show me one statement where you condemn the riots in your district. One press release or one interview, show me. She couldn't, because she hadn't. She had made excuses, defended the protests, blamed Trump, blamed police, and never condemned the violence in her own backyard. You incite, you inflame, and you divide. And when the consequences come, when businesses burn, and when people lose everything, you blame someone else. That is not leadership. That is arson, political arson. You light the fire, then walk away while your constituents burn. A teacher spoke up, saying, we used to teach kids that violence is never the answer, that peaceful protest is American, and that destroying property is wrong. Then 2020 happened, and you told us riots were uncomfortable. What am I supposed to tell my students? That burning buildings is okay if you are mad. You are supposed to be a role model and a leader. Instead, you are encouraging violence, and we are the ones who suffer for it. Vance nodded, stating 3 years later, businesses are still closed, jobs still lost, insurance rates still high, and investments dried up. Who wants to open a business in a district that might burn again? You created that environment with your rhetoric, your excuses, and your refusal to condemn violence. And your constituents paid the price while you sat in your $6 million mansion 15 miles away, safe, protected, and far from the fires. Vance took a breath, because this was personal now. Time to share his truth, Congresswoman Waters. Let me tell you about poverty. Real poverty. Not the kind you talk about in speeches, but the kind you live. His voice changed, got raw, emotional, and real. I grew up in Middletown, Ohio, a small town with dying steel mills. Rust Belt decay and Appalachian values, working-class people, my people. My mom couldn't raise me because she was addicted to drugs, pills, and heroin. She couldn't hold a job and couldn't keep our family together. In and out of rehab, in and out of relationships, and chaos. So my mama raised me, my grandmother, the toughest woman I ever knew, Bonnie Vance. She had grown up even poorer than me in Kentucky during the Depression. Real Appalachian poverty. She saved me, took me in, gave me structure, discipline, and love. The room was silent listening because this wasn't a political speech. This was his life. We had nothing: food stamps, Medicaid, and hand-me-down clothes. We lived in a small house where sometimes the heat got cut off in winter. Sometimes we couldn't afford groceries. I watched people I loved destroy themselves with drugs. I watched families fall apart and watched kids I grew up with drop out. They get addicted, go to jail, and die young. That is poverty, not the statistics and not the theory. The reality is the day-to-day struggle of having nothing and seeing no way out. He paused and looked around the room at faces that knew exactly what he meant. I was angry at the world, angry at the system, and angry that I had been born into this. But my mama taught me something. She said, you can be angry or you can do something, but you can't do both. So I did something. I joined the Marines right out of high school. I needed discipline, purpose, and a way out. I served in Iraq in public affairs and saw real poverty there too. Real suffering. It made me appreciate America, and made me realize we have opportunity here if you fight for it. I came home, used my GI Bill, went to Ohio State, worked my ass off, then got into Yale Law School. Me, a kid from Middletown at Yale. I remember my first day there surrounded by kids from Manhattan, from California, from prep schools, and from money. They had never known poverty, never worried about food, and never had heat cut off. They couldn't even imagine my childhood, but I had made it. I had escaped, broke the cycle, and proved it could be done. His voice got stronger as he said, I graduated, worked in tech, made money, and wrote a book about my story. Hillbilly Elegy became a bestseller with millions of copies. I could have gone anywhere, done anything, lived in San Francisco, New York, or LA. I could have made millions and forgotten where I came from, but I didn't. I went back to Ohio, ran for Senate, and won because I wanted to fight for people like me. People who grew up like I did, and people who are still struggling. I live in Cincinnati, in a normal neighborhood. My kids will go to public schools, and I shop at Kroger. I live among the people I represent. He turned to Waters, asking, you know why I did that? Because you can't represent people you don't live among. You can't fight for people whose lives you don't share. You can't understand poverty from a mansion. The contrast was stark and undeniable that I lived poverty while you exploited it. I escaped poverty while you profit from people staying poor. I went back to serve my people while you ran away to your mansion. I know the struggle, and you know the game. His voice rose, passionate, angry, and real. You have been in Congress 33 years, and these people are still poor, still struggling and still suffering. So nothing has changed, and nothing is better. You know why? Because you need them to stay poor. If they succeed, they don't need you, and if they prosper, they might vote for someone else. If they escape poverty like I did, you lose your power base. So you keep them dependent, keep them voting for you, and keep them believing your promises. While you get richer and richer, that is not public service. That is a con, a scam, and a betrayal. He looked at the crowd with his voice softer now, but intense. I am proof the American dream works, and you can escape poverty. You can break the cycle, and you can make it. But it only works if you have the right policies, the right opportunities, and the right leaders. And they don't have that. They have you. Someone who has failed them for 33 years, and someone who has gotten rich off their suffering. Someone who lives in a mansion while they can't afford rent. I look at these people, and I see my mama, my mom, and my neighbors growing up. People who deserved better, who worked hard, and who never got a fair shake. They remind me why I am in politics, to fight for them and to give them opportunity, to help them escape like I did. But you keep them trapped for your own benefit, for your own power, and for your own wealth. I escaped poverty while you created a career profiting from it. And that, he said quietly, is the difference between us. The room exploded in a standing ovation with tears and emotion. He had said what they had felt for decades, but couldn't articulate. He wasn't attacking from privilege. He was one of them, had been them, still remembered, and still cared. Waters sat there with no response, because what could she say? His story was real. His authenticity was obvious, and his moral authority was absolute. She had been exposed by someone who actually understood, who had actually lived it, who had actually escaped what she had been exploiting for 33 years. Vance stepped back, saying, I have said enough. Time to hear from the people who matter, the people she is supposed to represent, the people she has failed. So if you have a story, stand up. Tell her, tell America, and tell the truth. For a moment, there was silence. Then people started standing one by one. Then dozens stood. Then half the room. They had stories, 33 years of stories. A young mother stepped to the microphone, trembling but determined. My name is Keisha. I am 29, born and raised here. Single mom, 2 kids, 6 and 4. I work full-time as a receptionist and make $38,000 a year. After taxes, that is like $30,000 take home. Rent is $1,800 a month, which is $21,600 a year. More than half my income just for rent, then food, childcare, utilities, and gas. I got nothing left. I am 1 paycheck from homeless and 1 emergency from broke. My kids go to Jordan High, and it is terrible. No books, broken computers, teachers burnout, and violence. Gangs recruiting in hallways, and I voted for you every time. I believed you would help us, and believed you would make it better. It got worse, my rent went up, schools got worse, and the neighborhood got more dangerous. Nothing you promised came true, and I am thinking about leaving. Moving out of state to Texas, maybe, or Florida. Somewhere I can afford. Somewhere my kids can get educated. But I shouldn't have to leave my home. This is my city and my neighborhood, so I should be able to make it here. You have been in Congress my whole life, literally my whole life, and things got worse. How is that possible? She started crying. Where were you, and where have you been? Waters tried to respond and started to speak, but Keisha's voice got hard. Don't give me excuses, and don't give me promises, because I have heard them all for years. Nothing changes. You failed me, you failed my kids, and you failed this whole community. She walked away from the microphone and sat down as others stood up. An older black man, probably 65, wearing a Vietnam vet jacket, spoke. Marcus Johnson, served in Vietnam, came back here, been here 55 years. Watched this neighborhood change, not for better, but for worse. Used to have thriving businesses, black-owned stores, restaurants, barber shops, and community. Now homeless everywhere, businesses closed, drugs, violence, and it is dying. You have been our representative 33 years, so what you done? What actually got better? I voted for you, my wife voted for you, my kids voted for you. 3 generations, why, what did we get? You got a mansion, we got nothing. He shook his head, disappointed and sad. I fought for this country and came home to this. This is what we get. Next, a teacher, a middle-aged black woman who looked exhausted named Denise Carter. I teach at Fremont High and been teaching 25 years right here in this district. I love teaching and love my students because they are smart, talented, and capable. But we got nothing. No resources, no support, and no supplies. Classes of 40 kids, not enough desks, textbooks from 2005, and no AC in 90-degree heat. Bathrooms don't work, and I spend my own money on supplies. Buy pencils, paper, books. All teachers do, because district won't. Where is the money? Where is the federal funding you are always talking about? Every year you promise better schools, and every year we get less. Teachers quit, students drop out. It is a disaster. And you live in a $6 million mansion while I am buying pencils with my paycheck. That makes sense to you. Another man, young maybe 25 with tattoos, looking like he had seen some things, spoke. "Darius, I am a former gang member who grew up in this neighborhood. Joined a gang at 14, sold drugs, got shot, been to jail. Trying to go straight now for 3 years, but it is hard. No jobs here, applied everywhere. Nothing. Can't even get hired at McDonald's with my record. So, what am I supposed to do? I got bills, got a kid, need money. You talk about opportunity, but where is it? Where are the jobs? Where is the second chance? I am trying, really trying, but this district makes it impossible. Some of my boys went back to gangs, and can't blame them. No other option. You have been in charge 33 years, and gang problem is worse. Drug problem worse. Jail pipeline still running. What you actually done. Story after story. Testimony after testimony. Different ages, different backgrounds. Same theme. She promised. She didn't deliver. Things got worse. She got richer. An elderly woman, late 70s, spoke softly, but everyone listened. I am Mrs. Patterson. I have lived here since 1962, 62 years. Raised 5 children here and buried my husband here. This used to be a good neighborhood where people knew each other, looked out for each other and had pride, but it is gone, all of it. Homeless camps where parks used to be, and drugs where schools used to be. Safe where there used to be community, and fear where there used to be safety. I have voted for you since you first ran. Why? Because you promised to fight for us, to make it better, to bring us up. But you didn't. Nothing got better. Everything got worse. And I learned something. You can't help us because you don't live here. You don't know us, and you don't feel what we feel. You live in your mansion, and we live in this. You are safe. We are not. You are rich. We are poor. How can you represent us if you won't even live among us? She looked at Waters with something like pity. I am 79 years old and probably die here because this is my home. But my grandchildren, they are leaving, all of them. Moving to other states, looking for opportunity, and looking for hope. That is your legacy. You drove away our children, our future, and our hope. You should be ashamed. Waters sat there with tears in her eyes. Real or performative didn't matter. The damage was done. Her own constituents had turned on her. Her own voters had rejected her, and her own people had called her out. Vance had barely said anything in this round, and didn't need to. They had spoken their truth, their pain, and their anger. 33 years of failure testified to by dozens of people on camera, on the record. Undeniable, devastating, and true. Vance walked to the center of the room with everyone watching and waiting. Time for the final word. I want to thank everyone who spoke tonight because that took courage. Real courage to stand up, to tell your truth, to demand accountability. You have made something clear, something undeniable, something that needs to be said out loud. He turned to Waters, saying, Congresswoman, you are a poverty pimp. The room went silent with that phrase hanging in the air. A poverty pimp is someone who profits from other people's poverty. Who needs people to stay poor so they can keep making money off them? Who exploits suffering for personal gain? That is you. He started listing the evidence of 33 years representing one of the poorest districts in California. Every metric got worse with poverty up, income down, crime up, graduation down, and homeless everywhere. But you got richer. Started with maybe 500,000 net worth, now 6 million. While they got poorer, you live in a $6 million mansion, they can't afford rent. You arranged a bailout for your husband's bank, protecting your $350,000 investment. while they lost their homes in the financial crisis. Your daughter got $1.2 million from your campaign. Their donations, their $25 and $50 contributions went to your family. You incited violence to get in their faces, create a crowd. Then their district burned. Their businesses destroyed. And you called it uncomfortable. You don't even live in your district and won't even sleep in your district. It is not good enough for you, but you expect them to accept it. They stay poor, you get rich. They suffer, you profit. They are trapped, you are free. That is the definition of a poverty pimp. His voice rose, passionate, angry, and real. You don't want them to succeed, and you can't let them succeed. Because if they did, they wouldn't need you, and they wouldn't vote for you. You would lose power, so you keep them dependent and keep them desperate. Keep them believing your promises while you get richer and richer off their suffering. You have an incentive to keep them poor, an incentive to keep them struggling, an incentive to keep them trapped, because poverty is your business model. Their pain is your profit. He pointed at the crowd and at the people. They know it. They have lived it for 33 years. They have watched you promise and fail, promise and fail, promise and fail. And meanwhile, you got richer, your family got richer, and your life got better. While theirs got worse, that is not representation, that is exploitation. That is not public service, that is theft. That is not leadership, that is betrayal. Waters tried to respond and stood up saying, "These attacks are." "Sit down!" Vance's voice cut like a knife with Marine Command voice authority. "Your time to talk is over. You have had 33 years to talk, to promise, to explain, to excuse. But now it is time to answer. It is time for accountability, and it is time for truth." Waters sat down stunned because nobody had ever spoken to her like that. Here is what is going to happen. These people, your constituents, are going to vote in the next election, and the election after that, and they are going to remember tonight. Remember your mansion while they can't afford rent. Remember your wealth while they struggle. Remember your daughter's $1.2 million while they donated their last $25. They are going to remember you calling riots uncomfortable while their businesses burned. Remember you living 15 miles away while they live in decay. Remember 33 years of promises that never came true. And they are going to make a choice. Keep you or choose change. I think I know what they will choose. He addressed the crowd directly saying, "You have power. You have always had power. The power to vote and the power to choose. The power to demand better. So don't accept this. Don't accept career politicians who get rich off your suffering. Don't accept leaders who won't live among you. Don't accept 33 years of failure. Demand better. Vote for people who actually live in your district, who send their kids to your schools, and who shop in your stores, who share your struggles. Vote for people who want you to succeed, who celebrate your prosperity, and who have no incentive to keep you poor. The American dream still works. I am proof. I escaped poverty. You can too, but you need the right policies, the right opportunities, and the right leaders. And she ain't it. He looked at Waters one final time. Congresswoman, you should resign. You failed for 33 years repeatedly, consistently, undeniably. But you won't resign. Too proud, too entitled, too addicted to power. So they will have to vote you out, and I think they will. Because tonight The poverty pimp has been exposed. And once people see the truth, they can't unsee it. Your time is over. The town hall ended in chaos. Not violence, but emotion, anger, and hope. Years of frustration finally released. Waters tried to give closing remarks. The crowd booed, her own constituents booing her in her own district. She gave up, walked off stage left through a side exit with security escorting her. Couldn't face the people, Vance stayed, talked to residents, shook hands, listened to stories, connected like he had been doing all night. The footage went viral within hours. Poverty pimp exposed. J.D. Vance destroys Maxine Waters. Constituents turn on Waters, not just conservative media. Everyone covered it. Because it was her own voters in her own district calling her out with her own words. Her own record and her own failures. CNN couldn't spin it. MSNBC struggled. Even friendly outlets had to acknowledge she had been demolished by facts. By her own constituents and by a Marine veteran from Ohio who understood poverty better than she ever would. The clips that went most viral were, "You are a poverty pimp," residents testifying about her failures, her mansion versus their district visual contrast. "I lived it, you exploit it," her unable to defend herself. Within a week, a primary challenger announced, a local business owner actually lived in the district. Grassroots support. Fed up with Waters. Joe Collins, Black Republican Marine veteran. Small business owner born and raised in South Central. "I am running because our community deserves better. Deserves someone who lives here, who cares, who will actually fight for us. Not for themselves," Vance endorsed him. Sent money, sent support. He is the real deal. He understands poverty. He lives in the community. He cares. That is who should represent them. Donations poured in, not from millionaires, but from regular people. $10, $25, $50. People who had heard about the town hall, who had seen the videos, and who wanted change. The Democratic Party establishment panicked. Waters had been there since 1991 in a safe seat never seriously challenged. Now real possibility of losing, they tried to defend her. Attack on a black woman, Republican interference, the usual playbook. Didn't work because her own constituents were attacking her. Black voters in her own district weren't buying it. The movement spread to other districts, other career politicians, other poverty pimps getting challenged. People realized we don't have to accept this. We don't have to keep electing people who fail us. We have power. We can demand better. Vance became a hero not just to conservatives but to working-class Americans everywhere. Black, white, Hispanic, didn't matter. Hillbilly from Ohio went to LA and told the truth they had been waiting 33 years to hear. His book sales exploded again, and his influence grew. He represented something powerful, authentic working-class voice, someone who had lived it, who remembered, who cared. 6 months later, the primary happened. Waters versus Collins. It was close. Too close for a 33-year incumbent. She won, but barely, 52 to 48. She had survived, but everyone knew she was wounded, vulnerable, exposed. And next election might not make it, the poverty pimp had been put on notice. Change was coming, maybe not fast enough, maybe not today, but coming. Because the truth had been spoken, the pattern had been exposed, the accountability had been demanded. And once people see the truth, they can't unsee it. The American dream still worked. Vance was proof poverty could be escaped. Success was possible. But you needed the right leaders. Leaders who wanted you to succeed. Leaders who lived among you. Leaders who remembered where they came from. Not career politicians who got rich off your suffering. Not poverty pimps who profited from your pain. The tide was turning, slowly, but turning. And it started with one town hall, one Marine veteran, one night of truth. In South Central Los Angeles, in the heart of poverty, in the district of a poverty pimp, the reckoning had come. J.D. Vance went to Los Angeles to Maxine Waters' district and told the truth. He didn't go to debate, didn't go to grandstand, went to support the people, the residents, the constituents who had been failed for 33 years. And they told their truth about poverty, about failure, about broken promises, about a representative who got rich while they stayed poor. The poverty pimp was exposed on camera by her own people with her own record. 33 years in Congress, district got worse. She got richer. Pattern undeniable. Lives in a $6 million mansion, they can't afford rent. Daughter paid $1.2 million from campaign funds they donated their last $25. Arranged bailout for husband's bank. They lost their homes. Incited violence, their businesses burned. That is not representation, that is exploitation. That is a poverty pimp. If you believe career politicians who get rich off poverty should be voted out, share this story. If you think representatives should actually live in their districts, share this everywhere. If you believe the American dream still works, but we need better leaders, share this now. If you have seen poverty pimps in your area, Democrat or Republican, getting rich while constituents suffer, share this and demand accountability. Fire equals poverty. Pimps must go. Scale equals accountability for all career politicians. Muscle equals working class first. United States flag equals American dream still works. Share this video and tag people in your area dealing with poverty pimps. Make them watch, make them see, because there are Maxine Waters in every state. Every city career, politicians who have been in office for decades, who have gotten rich while their constituents stayed poor. Time to identify them, challenge them, vote them out. J.D. Vance proved something important. You can escape poverty. The American dream still works. Success is possible, but you need the right policies, the right opportunities, the right leaders. Leaders who remember where they came from, who live among the people they represent, and who actually want their constituents to succeed. Not leaders who profit from poverty, who need people to stay poor, who get rich off suffering. The movement is growing. South Central LA was just the beginning. Other districts are watching. Other constituents are waking up. Other challenges are coming. This is bigger than Maxine Waters. Bigger than one district. Bigger than one election. This is about taking back our country from career politicians, from poverty pimps, from people who have forgotten who they serve. We have power, the power to vote, the power to choose, the power to demand better. Use it. Research your representatives. How long have they been in office? What has improved? Are they rich while you struggle? Do they live in your district? If not, primary them, find someone better, someone local, someone who cares, someone who will actually serve instead of profit. Joe Collins is running against Waters. Support him. Donate. Volunteer. Spread the word and find the Joe Collins in your district. The local businessman, the teacher, the veteran, the person who actually lives there, who actually cares, who will actually work for you. Support them. Elect them. Give them a chance, because 33 years of failure is enough. 33 years of empty promises is enough. 33 years of poverty pimps getting rich is enough. Time for change, real change, not politician promises. Real people, real representation, real results. J.D. Vance showed us how to go to their districts and tell the truth. Support the people, demand accountability, and vote out the poverty pimps. Share this story. Make it viral. Let every career politician know we are watching. We are documenting. We are demanding accountability. The American dream still works. Vance proved it. You can escape poverty. You can succeed. You can make it. But you need leaders who want that for you, who celebrate your success, who have no incentive to keep you poor. Vote for those leaders and vote out the poverty pimps starting now. Share this video, tag 3 people, post everywhere. The reckoning has begun.